Comic Convention coming up next weekend. Let's welcome our next guest, and he truly is a legend. You all know that I don't like using that word. It's overused. It's not overused for this man. Let's welcome to the program, Bob Eubanks. Bob, how are you?
Hey, I'm just fine. Thank you very much for that intro. That was great.
We appreciate your time. Before we talk about not only the convention coming to town and obviously a couple of the game shows, talk about some of the other things in your career. I didn't realize not only a radio DJ, but you also dabbled in country music. And when I mean dabbled, I'm talking about some of the biggest names in the music biz.
Well, you know what happened? I was working at the number one rock station in L.A., KRLA, and the Beatles decided to tour America. So I hawked my house and presented the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl, 64, 65, and then 66 at Dodger Stadium. I think I'm the only living person to have produced a Beatle concert all 3 years they toured. And then later on, after I did a whole bunch of rock and roll, I got into country music, and I went to Merle Haggard, and I said, I want you, guy. And so I ended up producing all of his concerts for 10 years. And during that time, I managed the career of Dolly Parton, Barbara Mandrell. So I've had a wonderful career. And then along comes game shows, you know.
Well, then let's talk about it. Obviously, from my era, I remember watching the Newlywed Game. I remember Card Sharks vividly. Talk about what that was like, hosting the Newlywed Game. And I'm sure the questions and even more so, some of the answers were outrageous.
Yeah, we were kind of like the spicy program, I guess, way back then. But my radio station had a basketball team, and we were playing, and one of the celebs on our team was a guy named Bobby Boris Pickett. And I asked him, I said, who's your agent? You're getting so much work. And he told me. And my friend Charlie O'Donnell bet me $5 I couldn't sign with him. So I did sign with him and ended up getting the Newlywed Game. And I did that show off and on for 5 decades.
And I believe one of the taglines had something to do with Whoopee, correct?
Yeah, they wanted me to say make love, and I wouldn't do it because I didn't think you should have to explain that to your children until you were ready to do so. So Sinatra had a hit record, Make and Whoopee, and I said, I'll say Whoopee, and that's how Whoopee came about.
What was either the craziest, strangest question that was asked or answer, if you remember?
Well, I remember one time I asked this lady, I said, what's the one thing your husband told you not to talk about? And she looked at me and she says, my husband and my cousin are going to kill my uncle for the insurance. And I said, what? But what made it so weird is when they came back in, the husband matched the answer. Talk about weird.
Yeah, that definitely is. Then that you hosted, and now they've even brought it back in Card Sharks. Talk about that a little bit.
I loved Card Sharks. It was really a lot of fun. And there were 2 models on the show, Susanna Williams and Lacey Pemberton. Lacey Pemberton is the person over the last few years that has chosen all of the contestants on The Bachelor and Bachelorette. But it was a fun time. I shared a dressing room with Bob Barker, and there was a big thing on the wall, big, beautiful thing. And I took it off the wall and put it under the couch, being the jerk that I was. And so I'm out at my ranch, and we're roping, and I get an emergency phone call from Jonathan Goodson. Where's Barker's plaque? I said, what plaque? He said, don't mess with me, man. He won't go on. He won't shoot 5 shows until we find it. I said, oh, for God's sake, it's under the couch. And I said, what does WGMC mean? He says, world's greatest MC.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, so Bob, my question, is really more about like the obviously the host of the show makes the show. And, recently they announced that Wheel of Fortune is going to have a new captain at the helm, that Pat's stepping down.
Yeah.
Are some shows so big that no matter who is the host, it can continue on? Because I can't imagine the Newlywed Game without you hosting it. So,
well,
what point
they
did the
tried
show
it,
overcome?
Yeah, they tried it. A game show network did. And Pat, he's such a good guy. He did that show for 40 years. And we'll see what happens. But Vanna's going to stay on, and the format's pretty simple. So I think Ryan will do a good job on that one, really.
Well, what do you think of game shows today? And not necessarily to compare them. A lot have come back. The Pyramids come back. But give me your thoughts on some of the newer game shows of this era.
Well, I can tell you this. I think Steve Harvey is wonderful. He makes that show, I believe, anyway. And I've always thought that actors and comedians have a tough time doing game shows because they can't stand anybody else to be funny. But Steve Harvey, he's really good that way. And I think Wheel of Fortune, I think that he'll do a good job there. But those are the only two game shows that I've been watching, really.
I know my wife and I, that's all we do. We come home from work. We put on the Game Show Network. We watch them all, split seconds, now a new one. We love game shows. Before we run out of time, though, let's talk about you coming to the Tampa Bay area, the 28th through the 30th, the Tampa Bay Comic Convention. Have you done a lot of these conventions, and what's it like when young and old fans come up to you and ask you questions or have a conversation about back in the day?
It's just wonderful. As you mentioned, we're going to do the Tampa Bay Comic Convention, and I'm going to do it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, July 28, 29, and 30. And it's fun. I have a good time. And there's a whole bunch of other celebrities there, I mean, we're having like a mass convention with Jamie Farr and Loretta Swit and Jeff Maxwell. Corey Feldman will be there. I mean, it's just a full house of celebrities and fun. And I just can't wait to go to this one at Tampa Bay, really.
We've spoken to a couple of those guests as well. We had Loretta on not too long ago. I'm curious, as you're hitting the tour of some of these Comic-Cons, have you ever had a conversation with somebody that was on one of those game shows and they said, "Hey, Bob, I was on in 19 whatever"?
Oh, yeah. I've had several people come up to me and tell me they were on the Newlywed Game. That's the only one, but I've had a lot of people say, "Hey, my wife and I were on the Newlywed Game back in blank blank," So it's fun. At this point in my life, I just want to have a good time. And these Comic-Con conventions, the one in Tampa Bay, they're just fun. And I get to meet a lot of people and enjoy and tell them stories and the whole 9 yards. I mean, I got a Beatles story if you want to hear it.
Absolutely.
All right. Paul McCartney had a melody in his head, and he would walk around humming it, but he didn't have any words. Finally, he put words. Well, what he would do is he'd walk around and hum the melody and say, "Scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs." And he finally put words to it, and "Scrambled Eggs" became one of the most recorded songs in the history of music yesterday. How's that?
That is crazy. What was it like, working with them? Obviously one of, if not the most iconic band, of all time.
Yeah, it certainly was. First year, they were wide-eyed. They wanted to meet certain celebrities. Second year, they were tired, and they had set up a meeting over at Elvis's house. I wasn't invited, by the way. But while they were at Elvis's house, Paul McCartney found something that was really amazing to him. It was something that you could put in your hand and change the channel, and it just mesmerized him. And then the third year, I had them at Dodger Stadium, and they were tired, and that was the second to the last concert that they ever appeared in for money.
Wow. Good stuff. I know that you're doing a I don't know if it's a podcast or a radio show about some of these stories. Talk about that and how people can tune in and hear those.
Well, I'm doing a live show called Backstage with the Beatles. And that's when I tell stories that lead up to music. And then I have a Beatle band on stage with me, Ticket to Ride. And the stories I tell leads right up to music. And it's a good show. We sell out almost everywhere we go. I'm having a good time, guys. I really am. You know, coming to the convention at Tampa Bay is just fun. I invite everybody to have some fun with me. And I'm very fortunate right now, believe me.
Very good stuff. Mr. Bob, sir, thank you very much for your time. I know that we have your address. We're going to send you a care package from 8 Man Strong for coming on and talking to us. And all the fans can go out and meet Bob Eubanks on the 28th, 29th, and 30th in Tampa.
Hey, did you hear what happened to the president this morning?
No.
Yeah, well, he had to go to the doctor because he couldn't stop Putin.
We need to hit a break on that. This is Knockout Radio, brought to you by 8 Man Strong, Staff Zone, and Bucked Up Energy Drink. We'll be right back.